Okay, we're not going to get into hyperbole. We are not going to get into hyperbole. We are not going to get into hyperbole in the wake of Pitt's 48-7 win over Boston College at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday, which featured the sparkling debut of Mason Heintschel as a true freshman starter at quarterback. We are not going to get into hyperbole. But that was the best offensive performance of the Cade Bell era. Darn it. We already did it. We didn't even make it 30 seconds into this podcast before we've gone into hyperbole. But how can you not in the wake of a game that was near perfect from Pitt's perspective? Certainly on offense, really the whole shebang was near perfect. Very few issues to find with that performance, and maybe that means the numbers on this video and this podcast will be down from what it was after the Louisville and West Virginia games. Kind of felt that on the post-game show. Maybe didn't have as many viewers as we had after the West Virginia game and the Louisville game. Everybody likes to maybe tune in more after the losses. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because we've got some great stuff to talk about this week as you move from Pitt beating Boston College to taking on Florida State in Tallahassee on Saturday. That's going to be a huge game for two teams that I think are in very, very interesting positions. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about that all this week. But today, it's our Monday Thoughts on Saturday's Game episode of the Morning Pitt, and today just happens to be Monday Thoughts on Saturday's Win. 2 days later, what are we thinking about the Panthers' 48-7 win over Boston College at Acrisure Stadium? How are we reflecting on that? Individual performances, team performances, offense, defense, even special teams. Because you got a true freshman. Mason Heintschel wasn't the only true freshman who had a career day on Saturday. Trey Bukowski had a career-long field goal. But I'm getting way ahead of myself, right? I mean, we can't give away all the goods right in the intro. So let's jump into it. It's the Morning Pitt, the Monday edition, right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, you go into a game like Saturday, taking on Boston College, a team that doesn't seem to be very good, coming into that one 1-3, and you think, well, that should be a good winnable opportunity, but they're going into it with a freshman quarterback. We talked about it on the message boards, started, I think it was getting hinted at on Thursday. We pretty much said that was our expectation on Friday that Mason Heintschel was going to get the start. It became, confirmed, obviously, on Saturday morning with the game. And there was a lot of optimism. There's a lot of reason to believe that Mason Heintschel would do well. All the things we had heard about him throughout spring camp and throughout training camp, there were high expectations. Everybody raved about Mason Heintschel, how good he was. And it wasn't just the physical ability. It was because, you knew that. You could watch his tape from high school, and regardless of what level of competition he was facing, he was making plays. He was out there running. He was out there passing. He was a spark, and I think his team won their division championship for the first time in 42 years, and it was all him. He put up ridiculous numbers and was, the catalyst. He was the engine for that team. And so he had the physical abilities, but what seemed to really impress everyone in spring camp and training camp was how he picked up the offense, his knowledge of the offense, his command of the offense, and people would talk in sort of rarefied terms, almost hushed tones and rarefied air about how advanced Mason Heintschel was as a true freshman. There were comparisons to Kenny Pickett. Not say, oh, he's going to be Kenny Pickett, he's going to be a Heisman finalist, he's going to upset the number 2 team in the country, or any of that kind of thing. It wasn't that. It was, look, when Kenny got here, he had his command of the offense was really impressive for a freshman. Like, you wouldn't expect a freshman to command the offense and understand the offense and grasp the offense the way that Kenny Pickett did. And they never really talked about anybody like that up until this spring. They would be excited about guys. We think Eli's going to be really good. We think this guy's going to be really good. We think that guy's going to be really good. But they didn't talk about anybody the way they talk about Mason Heintschel and the way they talked about him in the spring, that he got it. There was something about him that I think had some people in the South Side believing he was the best quarterback on the team. And that's another conversation. We talked about that on the post-game show. We'll get into it a little bit here as well. But that's not the point that we're starting off with. But the point is that despite all of those all of that praise, all of that optimism, all of those high comparisons and all of that, everything that you heard about how good it looked like Mason Heintschel might be as a college quarterback, he still didn't really know. You just didn't know how that first start was going to go. Because you get out there in a game, you're not playing against Pitt's defense anymore. You're not playing against the scout team defense. You're not playing against a defense, even if it is the scout team defense, showing you what Boston College has done on defense over the course of the last year or whatever. You're going out and facing a real live team that has a whole new game plan, and they're going to do different things and things you haven't seen and things you don't expect, and you just don't know how it's going to work. You're live now too. You're getting hit. They can tackle you as opposed to, Pitt's defense or the scout team defense. They're not allowed to touch you. Like it's a totally different world when you step on the field. And you just never know. A guy can be the best athlete. A guy can have the best command of the offense. A guy can do a great job running the offense in scrimmages and practice and all of those things and be great in the meeting room. You just don't know how it's going to go on the field. And then Mason Heintschel stepped on the field. And he started playing. And I wrote about this on Panther-Lair.com yesterday. I talked about it on the postgame show on Saturday. It was one of the most remarkable things to me. I talked to a number of people about this after the game. The very first drive. All right, the very first drive on Saturday. They go out there. Cade Bell calls a running play on first down. Pitt's very first drive. They get the ball at their 24. First down. Hand off to Juelz Goff. 0-yard gain. Well, that's a bad start. You're now in a 2nd and 10. And you don't really want to be in a 2nd and 10. That's a difficult position. You got to throw. What are you going to do? Freshman quarterback, how's he going to react? Who knows? Maybe BC brings pressure. Maybe they show pressure. Maybe they drop. What are you going to do? So what's Mason Heintschel do? Throws to Justin Holmes for 4 yards. Now 2nd and 10 is 3rd and 6. Now 3rd and 6, this isn't good for Pitt's offense. This isn't good. This is one of the stats that I couldn't get enough of because I couldn't believe it. Against West Virginia and Louisville, Pitt had 21. They faced 3rd and 5 or longer 21 times. 3rd and 5 or longer 21 times, and they converted one of those. One. And it was Cole Gonzalez at the end of the Louisville game. So 3rd and 6 should be a manageable, makeable 3rd down, but for Pitt's offense against Power 4 competition this year has not been a makeable 3rd down. What does Mason Heintschel do? Finds Kenny Johnson, the guy who we all have believed or assumed or hoped or thought was Pitt's number 1 wide receiver. Their wide receiver 1, the best receiver on the team, finds him for a 7-yard gain. First down. They had 1 conversion on 3rd and 5 or longer against West Virginia and Louisville. They got 1 on the first try against Boston College. So now it's first down at the 35, right? Goes back to Juelz Goff, handoff on first down, gets 3 yards. Not great, not bad. It's all right. 2nd and 7. What are you going to do? Mason Heintschel drops back, doesn't like it, scrambles, picks up 3 yards. Well, that's okay because now it's 3rd and 4. Makeable 3rd down distance. What happens? Does Heintschel try and air it out? He's at the Pitt 41. What's he do? How does he handle a 3rd and 4 situation? He drops back. It's a little dump off to Malachi Thomas. Gets 4 yards. First down. Here we are again. First down. Pitt 45. Now this has taken 6 plays to go 21 yards, but they're moving. They're converting 3rd downs. Just chipping away. Taking what's there. Taking 4-yard gains, 3-yard gains. Because look, 4-yard gains. If you can gain 4 yards 3 times in a row, you got a first down. So 4-yard gains are okay. 4-yard gains are not a 40-degree day. 4-yard gains are like a 60-degree day. Love it. Take it all day long. Maybe not 60, maybe a 55-degree day. So it's first down at the 45, right? Another handoff, Juelz Goff, 1-yard run. This first down running wasn't getting much, but you do what you can. 2nd and 9, they get a pass interference. So they get a little help there. They get 15 yards. They move to the Boston College 39. First down, Jakirian Turner, handoff, 0, right? So now it's 2nd and 10, the Boston College 39. This time, Heintschel gets a run call. Takes off, picks up 13 yards, gets a first down. They're now at the 26. Jakirian Turner gets a handoff again. I think it was a toss play to the left. 12 yards, right? Now it's 1st and 10 at the 14. Heintschel runs play action. Just he dodges a guy because there's a defender coming at him. And just kind of dumps it off to Justin Holmes. Get a handful of yards. It's 1st and 10, right? You get a 4-yard gain. That's good. You're in a good spot. Well, Holmes breaks a tackle, runs past another guy, and gets into the end zone for a touchdown. It ends up being a 14-yard pass, but it wasn't a 14-yard throw into the end zone. It was just a short throw. Just take what was there. Defense left the tight end open. Take him. Maybe you get 4 yards, and you're at 2nd and 6. It's great. 2nd and 6 at the 10. Take that all day. Mason Heintschel didn't do anything crazy on that first drive. which ended up being a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 play drive. One of, I think, 5 drives in the game with 10 or more plays. He didn't do anything crazy on that 11 play drive. He threw passes of 4, 7, 4, and 14. And he scrambled for 3 and ran for 13. Just chip away. Routine plays. Kenny Johnson said after the game that Mason Heintschel didn't need to be Superman. He just had to take what was there. He just had to run the offense. And I asked Mason Heintschel about that. He's like, yeah, I just had to, stay within the offense, get the ball to my guys and let them make plays. And that's all he was doing. He was just getting the ball to his guys. And he got 4 yards to Justin Holmes, 7 yards to Kenny Johnson, 4 yards to Malachi Thomas. And these were setting up manageable third down situations and converting those third down situations. And this is what he did throughout the game. Now, he still had some heroics in there. He was still able to make some spectacular plays. The touchdown pass to Glue Hicks, the one that came back on the holding call, incredible throw. Unbelievable catch by Glue Hicks, but incredible throw by Mason Heintschel. He's capable of that kind of play. His touchdown pass to Deuce Spann, I think it was his 3rd touchdown pass of the game. I talked about this a lot on the postgame show. They're at the 10. He drops back. Doesn't have his first options available, starts to run. He's got space in front of him. He's got space. I think it was a first down play too. So he's got space that he could run for 3, 4, 5 yards. Maybe he breaks something. He gets like 6 or 7, 6, 7, and ends up, he's probably going to get you at least to like the 6-yard line, maybe the 5 or the 4. And so now you're at 2nd and goal from the 6 or closer. Great situation. But he doesn't run for it. He runs along the line of scrimmage, runs parallel to the line of scrimmage, watching for Deuce Spann to get open, and then fires to him in the end zone for a touchdown. What a heady play. What a sense of awareness by Mason Heintschel in that situation, because it would have been a good option to just run and pick up 4, 5, 6 yards. It's fine. But he had the presence of mind to run along the line of scrimmage, find Deuce Spann, and get the touchdown play. Like, that was, I don't know if I would call that a Superman play, but that was an above average play for Mason Heintschel there. So what he did in this game was find the average plays, make the average plays, and then make some above average plays when the situation called for it. Now, it's not going to be that easy every game going forward. Florida State this weekend is going to be much more challenging than Boston College was. But like, what Pitt needed the most coming into this Boston College game, after the losses to West Virginia and Louisville, what Pitt needed the most was an efficient, effective offense. An offense that didn't turn the ball over, an offense that was able to stay on the field, an offense that was able to convert third downs, because they were terrible on third down against West Virginia and Louisville, and they converted, I think, 9. I think they were 9 of 17 on third down against Boston College. They had possession for like 40 minutes of the game against Boston College. They were 3 of 3 on fourth down against Boston College. So even 3, so they converted 9 out of 17 third downs. 3 more of those third downs led to fourth downs that they converted. So they, those situations, they kept the ball moving. They kept the possessions going. They scored 6 touchdowns. 6 different guys scored those touchdowns. I mean, it was just an efficient performance and exactly the kind of performance that Pitt needed. And the result, as I said at the top, was quite possibly the best performance of Pitt's offense that we've seen since Cade Bell arrived. I was looking back at Pitt's numbers against Power 4 opponents since the start of last season. In the Cade Bell era, they've now played 13 games against Power 4 teams. They had 503 yards of total offense on Saturday. The only time Pitt had more yards than that against a Power 4 opponent was the North Carolina game last year. They had 520. They had 172 rushing yards on Saturday. The only time Pitt had more rushing yards against a Power 4 opponent with Cade Bell was the Cincinnati game when they had 196. So you had, I'm trying to think of what yardage-wise. I'm trying to look for the do I have it open? Oh, yeah. So they had 196 rushing against Cincinnati and 302 passing. So, a little bit more rushing wise, but a little bit less passing. And they ended up with, compared to Saturday's game, and they ended up with, 498 yards against Cincinnati last year, over 500 against Boston College on Saturday. They had 6 total touchdowns. That's a new record for Pitt against Power 4 teams with Cade Bell calling plays. They had 331 passing yards, which was the 4th most against a power opponent against under Cade Bell. But that was only the 2nd time under Cade Bell against a Power 4 team they've thrown for 300 yards without any interceptions. That's huge. And that's a big part of, why they won, as well as, the bigger stat that they had 0 turnovers. Pitt only had, that was only the, I think, 3rd time against a Power 4 opponent in the last 2 years that they have gone without any turnovers. It was West Virginia last year, they had no turnovers, and Syracuse last year, they had no turnovers. Oh, and they also gained 31 first downs in Saturday's game, which was the most under Cade Bell against a Power 4 opponent. And Cade Bell always says they want to lead the country in first downs, because as much as Cade Bell wants to score fast and all of that stuff, play fast, score faster and everything, he's also very much about just sort of matriculating the ball down the field, right? Chipping away, taking what's there and moving the ball in that fashion. So even by that standard, it was the best we've seen with 31 first downs. It's not an exaggeration to say that was the best offensive performance we've seen from Pitt with Cade Bell, particularly given the opponent, the fact that it was a Power 4 opponent. And even if, Boston College, not very good, still, a superlative performance, and one that it's hard to avoid hyperbole. And then you throw in the fact that the defense was pretty much perfect as well. Pitt's defense couldn't have played much better in this. They give up 216 total yards, 27 rushing yards, obviously just 1 touchdown, 4 of 12 on 3rd down. And, some of those numbers, 216 total yards and 1 touchdown. The touchdown and 80 of those yards came on the final drive when Pitt had freshmen and backups in. So really, against Pitt's regular defense, Boston College had less than 150 yards and didn't score. So pretty dominant performance there as well. 3 turnovers, 2 fumbles, and an interception. Shadarian Harrison. It turns out it's hard to throw passes to the running back, and if you float him too high, you might end up getting him picked off. Well, Shadarian Harrison was the beneficiary of that. Got his first career pick in the game. Rasheem Biles and Kyle Lewis were involved with fumbles. I think Jimmy Scott recovered the fumble that Rasheem Biles caused. It was just a dominant performance. 2 sacks and 7 tackles for loss, and just overall really impressive. One of the better games we've seen Pitt play against a power. One of the more complete. I shouldn't say, yes, better, but the word really for Saturday's game is complete. One of the more complete games we've seen Pitt play against a Power 4 opponent in a long time. I don't know. Duke in 2016, probably a few of the 2021 games, just in terms of complete performance. They were pretty good. I think they dominated Georgia Tech pretty good in 2021. I think they took care of business against Virginia Tech pretty well in 2021. Just start to finish dominance. There haven't been many games like the one we saw on Saturday. And the fact that it happened with a true freshman starting at quarterback, it's hard not to be encouraged and excited about. Look, I was so fired up, I changed the slideshow. You have photos from Pitt's game against Boston College now, huh? Are you not excited about that? Huge win for Pitt. Not huge in the sense of they're going to get ranked because they beat Boston College, but huge in the sense of breaking the losing streak, having the kind of game that they've been needing to have, and they haven't had basically since Carolina game last year, maybe the Syracuse game last year. They haven't had a game like that, particularly against a Power 4 team, and maybe overall, since last October. They needed that. And I think you, Pitt fans, you needed that too. You needed something to feel good about, something to give you a little bit of hope, and it might be that guy right there, Mason Heintschel. Now, he's going to have a chance to prove that he's really all that, and that Pitt's offense really has turned a corner when they go down to Florida State on Saturday. But for now, you get a few days to just enjoy it. And try not to lose too much sleep thinking about Well, imagine where they'd be if Pitt had started Mason Heintschel at the beginning of the season. Because, yeah, they'd probably be 5-0. Or at worst, 4-1. But that's not how it went. And I think we can litigate that and debate it and discuss it. Had a later date. I joked on the post-game show that we're not going to have a Morning Pitt episode this week titled, why didn't Pitt start, or where would Pitt be if Mason Heintschel had started? We all know. We all know, and we talked at length after the West Virginia and Louisville games about how the quarterback position was probably the biggest reason Pitt lost those games. So we all know that they'd be in much better shape if they'd started Mason Heintschel from the beginning. But they didn't. Well, at least they corrected that and got what seems to be the right guy out there now. And also, the fact that he targeted Kenny Johnson like 11 times, and Kenny Johnson had 9 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown, set career highs in catches and receiving yards. I mean, you're all right in my book if you're going to feed Kenny Johnson. Oh, and how about the running backs, too? There's a lot to talk about coming out of this game. It looks like we're not going to get to all of it today, but we'll definitely have plenty of time throughout the week. Tomorrow, we'll recap Pat Narduzzi's press conference because that'll be happening later today. We'll recap that. And then, of course, we'll be breaking down the offense, the defense, previewing Florida State, and everything else you need to know about as Pitt moves through this week, coming off a win for the first time in like a month or something like that. So a lot to look forward to. We'll have a lot to talk about. Listen, thanks for tuning in today. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you never miss any of our Pitt video content. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm sure you did after the Pitt win on Saturday. Enjoy your Monday, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.